All right.
There
I
you go.
can shift and let him sit here.
Whatever, that would be fine.
Ow.
Might be easier. All right, so you're gonna kind of get my side, and I'm gonna talk to them right now, so. It's 6:30.
All right. We're live on both Facebook and YouTube. You're good to go there.
All right.
For just in case. 3, 2, 1. Synchronized doc. You're on.
Well, thank you all for coming. It's been a day. All the weather and everybody gets excited. So we got one more that'll be here in just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and get started, kind of give you up on there and what we're doing. I was telling you that my son almost cut the end of his foot off in a lawnmower accident several years ago. And while we were in the hospital, he got hooked up with a very good orthopedic surgeon at Anniston Orthopedics. And we were at a follow-up visit, and he was just showing me what was going on. And so then he asked me this question, and I'm gonna read it to you. He said, "We, orthopedic surgeons, have heard a lot about core. It has to do with the core muscle. He said we've heard that a lot recently, but now we're hearing a lot more about posture. So he asked me this question: what's more important, posture or core?" And my answer to him was both. So this whole thing that I wrote, and I'll get you all a copy of this if you want to take a look at it, was sort of a summary. It started out as just like a one-page introduction to sort of a general concept of what we do and why we do what we do, how we work on people, and the ideas that, we looked at your posture, we looked at the muscle balance, and we sort of have a good strategy, and I think we have good results with what we do. But to him, I said both are interrelated and both are important. Both posture and core muscles are important. So when you deal with most people's posture, because of life and gravity, cell phone usage, computers, there's almost always, as we get older, this anterior head translation that affects everybody. Gravity is relentless, and we're all under the effect of that. And so that leads to a long-term joint strain. It can lead to, let me read, this actually came a specific quote from the Mayo Clinic Health Newsletter in the year 2000. So this is not new stuff. But he said anterior head translation or forward head posture causes long-term muscle strain, disc herniations, pinched nerves, and arthritis, according to the Mayo Health Clinic Newsletter in June of 2000. So we're on 12 years old information. There's a lot of more recent publications about posture and the negative effect it has on brain function, strength, coordination, reflexes, even the ability of remaining independent. There's a correlation to posture, compressive stresses on the nerves of the brain, where you interrupt the signaling from the brain to the body, which has an impact, a huge negative impact on the cost and the suffering associated with many, many chronic diseases of an internal standpoint, both cardiovascular, long-term negative effects of COVID, gastroenterological problems, autoimmune disorders, most joint problems, arthritis in general, anxiety and even depression are related. These are mostly managed by medications by and large, but according to the research, when you disrupt the signals from your brain to your body, you have a higher likelihood of developing complications, even to the point where they said if you had a heart attack with bad signaling, you would have a higher chance of dying. Whereas if you had a good signal, you would have better connection control, you'd have a higher chance of survival with a heart attack. It's pretty important to understand the critical nature of the ability of the brain and the body to communicate. So when we start talking about translation of the head and poor posture, what we know that does is it begins to have an effect on excessive tension building up on the body. There's a balance issue of mechanical loading stress that accumulates that creates very specific patterns of negative influence. And anytime the posture is impacted, you're going to have a negative effect on the signaling control of the brain signals to the body. So the spine has two major functions. One is the central frame of connection of all the moving parts. So if the spine's distorted or torqued or twisted or shifted in one way or another, from ideal, then you're going to end up creating extra loading on the joints and abnormal movement patterns on the muscles. And the muscles have a tendency to build up chronic patterns of tension and imbalance, and then the other major function of the spine is it protects the signaling from the brain to the body. So the nervous system and the critical nature of the vitality signaling flowing from the brain to the body is too important to not understand this. And not many people are really talking about it. You know, you don't really hear this a lot. So when we start talking about tension increases, then you're going to have restricted range of motion, the joints won't move properly, the joint doesn't naturally lubricate when it's not moving properly. I got this one from one of the orthopedic surgeons that said motion was lotion for the joints. And I told him, I said, I'm going to steal that, and I'll give you credit once, but after that, I own it, right? But I am telling you, I didn't come up with that came from an orthopedic surgeon. But the reality is that when the joints do move properly, they do naturally lubricate, and that's what you want. They'll stay healthy indefinitely, but they will wear out horribly fast when the body is overloaded because of mechanical stresses. And there's an associated research that talks about how the body ages significantly faster after a sprain or strain type of an injury where the body's no longer moving correctly. 6.5 to 7 times faster than normal. I tease my patients and I say, now you're aging in dog years instead of people years. And you'll see these bone spurs and compressive loading on the joints and collapse of the vertebra. They all occur as a result of the stress. So, and this can happen on any joint that operates with too much tension. Specifically, the discs are the ones we're concerned about, you know, chiropractically, because that's the cushion between the vertebrae. And when you limit the motion, you limit the natural lubrication, and it allows deterioration and this reactive tension and a relentless cycle of progressive worsening over time. So it's not, you know, aging, which is what most people mistake it for. They say, well, I'm just getting older.
Right.
Well, that's not true. The reality is it's a rapid breakdown because of